This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys
Get this win. I don't know, Jack. It's a big decision.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying space.
Pittsburgh at Buffalo.
Thank you. I thought I was right. So anyway,
Yeah, Mac, you're really interested in these playoffs.
so
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
good morning, everyone, and welcome to NESSP in the morning, the Mac and Jack Sports Show, with guests on here today. Byron Williams, Keith Engle will be coming up here shortly. Good morning, Byron. Good morning, Jack. Are you ready for this? We're ready, aren't we?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So, guys, just a real quick personal note. We were watching my buddy Craig Wright on Foodie Friday with his restaurant, Craig's Kitchen. If you're in the Connecticut area, stop by and check it out. Some of the best soul food in Connecticut. So let's get into some sports here. Former Dallas defensive coordinator Dan Quinn was hired by the Washington Commanders. What do you think, Byron, about all this NFC East switch around? I've never seen nothing like it.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting now because Dan Quinn always have a good defense, and he's a great coach. I met him, got a chance to meet him up close last year, and I think that's a good hire for Washington. I'm excited to see what's gonna happen now in the NFC East.
And yeah, that's one of the areas Washington had problem with last year, right? Was
Right.
stopping the other offenses. Their offense was okay. They scored a lot of points in some games there, but their defensive backfield, their defensive line, they lost a couple key players, Young and Sweat. So now they got to kind of rebuild that and reboot that again. And, maybe Dan Quinn is the right guy for the job, Jack.
Dan Quinn did take a team to the Super Bowl, the Atlanta Falcons, and they had the biggest collapse in Super Bowl history. And he had to be held somewhat accountable for that. And he had success as a defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. But during the playoff game in the Packers, there were so many mistakes. They were so out of position so much of the time. What happened in that one particular game? As we know, a whole season can basically go down the drain, or at least be badly tarnished with one terrible playoff performance. So based on that game that they lost in the playoffs against the Green Bay Packers, you would have thought maybe his head coaching window was starting to close, but apparently it didn't.
And interesting to me, Wink Martindale hasn't gotten a job yet. Do you think it's because, Byron, of the problem of going behind the ball's back with his two assistant coaches and doing their own thing and not letting him know?
Yeah, I think that's probably part of it. Rumors and things get out in the coaching arena, and I think that's what done hurt him a little bit. But he's a great defensive coordinator. I mean, he always be in the top. He changed the way the defense played in the last couple of years in New York. So I like him, and he's a exciting play. He was ahead to the Ravens playing great defense even when he was there. So I just hope that he get another opportunity and maybe need a break for a year. But, I think he's one of the best.
Yeah.
One thing an assistant coach has to understand, especially a main coordinator, offensive or defensive, you have to be loyal to the head coach. Even if you don't like the head coach, you can't conspire with the other coaches behind the head coach's back. You can't disenfranchise them in any way. And apparently that was going on with Wink Martindale to an extent. Why would Wink Martindale move on from the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah.
Okay, go to the Giants, unless he was looking for a head coaching job and thought, well, that could be a stepping stone towards it. We never got the story why he exactly left the Ravens, but as Byron could tell you, it's word of mouth. If Wink Martindale has been disloyal to the head coach in any way in New York, and if he was that way at all in Baltimore beforehand, and I'm not saying he was, word of mouth travels throughout the NFL.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, too, the coaching carousel is all about, friendships, relationships, and, those guys know each other real well. I mean, it's just like a brotherhood. So that is so important.
I agree with that. And with all the coaching, head coaching is closed. There's no more jobs. And there you have Bill Belichick, and you have from Tennessee,
Mike
Vrabel. Out of jobs. They don't have a chance to get it.
This is just a thought, guys. Did Belichick's age play a part in him not getting a job this year? Well, was it a combination that commanding too much power? Because hiring Bill Belichick should be a no-brainer for at least one of the teams, yet they bypassed them for lesser names.
Right?
Yeah, I think too. And plus, he wanted a lot of control in the situation, in the job situation that he's going to be in. So I think people stayed away from that. But I thought, Atlanta was going to hire him. Really thought it was getting close to they hiring him, but it didn't happen.
Did the Rooney Rule prevent Belichick from getting a job? Because let me explain. The Atlanta Falcons seemed to want him in the beginning. And Belichick would have looked to be an ideal coach for a quick hire. The job's available. I can get Bill Belichick now before he can interview with other teams, and they hire him. But because of the Rooney Rule, the process is supposed to take a while. You have to interview a number of candidates.
Well, it didn't affect Jim Harbaugh. It didn't affect Jim Harbaugh, right? He got a job right away. I didn't hear him interviewing.
Jim Harbaugh's a powerful coach. He wasn't available when Belichick was available. Belichick was available sooner.
But we're talking about whether the Rooney Rule had anything to do with it. It didn't have anything to do with Jim Harbaugh.
They interviewed other candidates before Jim Harbaugh was available. And then as soon as Jim Harbaugh was available, he immediately became the front runner.
I think.
But Jack, in my opinion, I think that most of these general managers and owners kind of have an idea of who they really want.
Sure,
I mean, you can interview 5 or 6 guys, but deep down inside, they knock it down to probably 1 or 2 guys. And regardless of who they interview, just look at Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy done interviewed with a lot of people, but I would thought by now he'd have a chance to become a head coach. But I just think the rule is just one of those things that they have to have in place.
I agree.
Let me go a step further, guys. Is Eric Bieniemy going to get a job as an offensive coordinator anywhere? It doesn't look like it. There's no word yet that came out of Washington whether they're going to keep him or not. But my thought is twofold. Dan Quinn's either going to bring in his own guy, or Dan Quinn made a deal with ownership to keep Eric Bieniemy on board. We'll have an answer soon enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
no doubt. And really, there's more black NFL head coaches than there has ever been. So I mean, they are getting the interviews, they are impressing people, and they are becoming head coaches. So whether that has to do with the Rooney Rule or not, I don't know. A lot of these black head coaches are former defensive coordinators.
I think me and Jim Jeffcoat need to be a head coach.
Or maybe you. I don't know about Jim. If his coaching's like his picks, I don't know. One name has slipped under the radar completely when you talk about head coaches who you would think would normally be a hot coaching candidate. Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator of the Vikings, who was successful when he was head coach of the Dolphins. did he even interview? Maybe he interviewed, but he was never a serious candidate for any of the jobs. And he did a good job as the Viking defensive coordinator. They had a couple of rough games at the end of the year, but all in all, he did a good job.
His name never popped up this year.
Maybe it was the lawsuit that turned people off.
That's exactly where I was going to go. Again, here's somebody creating waves outside of the normal stuff, and that scares owners away. If they suppose they hire him and then they fire him.
Well, I thought Aaron Glenn was going to be have an opportunity to coach somewhere, but he's going to eventually probably be a head coach.
I think so too.
Yeah, that you'd think Aaron Glenn would have gotten a position ahead of Dan Quinn. You would have thought that. Steve Wilkes, the 49er defense wasn't exactly lights out. They were okay, they were good, but it's not like they had an elite defense that would force the issue for Steve Wilkes to get the job. And I think that's what these organizations focus on. They don't focus on team success as much as they do the success of the unit the guy's in charge of.
Yeah. And I think too the head coaches need to have a good case of who he gonna bring in as coordinators and what he like to see in the locker room and things like that. That is so key. And I think some of these guys not quite there. And an example like Eric Bieniemy, a lot of people say that he's just not a good interviewer. And so, the rumors are out there. So, sometimes you have to overcome those rumors that they have out there on you.
I think Bieniemy will stay with the Commanders. I haven't heard any reason why he wouldn't. I think he did a pretty good job with that young quarterback. The quarterback made some mistakes, but he's still young. So, I think he did a good job with that offense last year.
But I don't think it helped Eric Bieniemy, the Kansas City Chiefs, being back in the Super Bowl. Had the Kansas City Chiefs gotten eliminated quickly in the playoffs, they struggled offensively. Some people may have taken note, even though Eric Bieniemy didn't call the plays. Wow, the Chief offense wasn't as effective. Bieniemy's not there, and they tried to connect the dots, and it would have elevated them.
Yeah, and plus Andy Reid, man, he seemed like he didn't miss a beat after Bieniemy left. So yeah, exactly.
I don't know who took over for Bieniemy over there, but it seemed like they kept everything pretty much. Besides that little rough spot they had in the regular season, it seemed that they kept everything pretty much in check. You notice they're not fooling around anymore. They're not doing them trick plays as much as they used to. They're more basic. We're going to run the ball. We're going to throw the ball when we have to and all that stuff.
Right. Another thing, Sam Howell didn't really develop into a franchise quarterback under Bieniemy. I don't blame Bieniemy. I never thought Sam Howell was that good to begin with. He had some potential, but just the idea that Washington, who goes number 2 overall in the draft, is very probably going to draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
And where Sam Howell had been developed properly, and I don't blame Bieniemy for that. You're only as good as someone you can work with at times. That would have been a difference maker.
Yeah, and the good thing about the draft, I can see somebody trading up to get a player that they really want, especially one of these quarterbacks.
I'm telling you this, guys. I don't want me to get ahead of ourselves, and I apologize, Mac, if I am. But the first quarterbacks are projected to go in the first 3 picks of the draft, and we all know you're not going to get 3 quality starting NFL quarterbacks. 3 franchise quarterbacks. At least one team's going to be making a big mistake. Maybe 2 teams out of the 3. It happens all the time. The Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold type situation, where you don't force the issue and take a quarterback unless you truly believe he's going to be outstanding. And as a result of that mistake, a team that could have had Marvin Harrison Jr., who's going to be a great, great receiver in this league, one of these teams is going to bypass a talent like that.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. It is. You are taking a chance by going number 1 for a quarterback. We've seen that going on. Speaking of quarterbacks,
well, how about number 2? The Commanders go second,
or number 2, or number 3. I mean, if you take it with your first pick, is what I'm saying, Jack.
Well, so they're definitely taking a quarterback, number 2 and number 3. Yeah.
I don't know. They need some defensive help. That's for sure. So anyway, speaking of quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins wants $45 million a year for the Minnesota Vikings to stay with him. Now, listen, Kirk, plays the football pretty well. He's a great field manager. He's getting a little older. And the last time he was in the playoffs, he got beat by a Giant team that they should have beat the Giants. So 45 million, maybe 30 million, okay, I'd pay him that. Maybe 45 to me, Byron, is too much.
That's the market, though. I just think he probably gonna make anywhere between 40 and 45 million. That's in the market, and plus he's always at the top for his stats, for his touchdowns and quarterback ratings. He got some great receivers, so I just think they can't play without Kirk Cousins. I don't see them. I don't see them. I see that they have to pay Kirk Cousins myself. That's what
what choice do you have? Okay, but to come close to meeting his price, he put 45 million out there. Kirk Cousins is probably thinking, okay, I'll take 40 million a year for 2 years instead. But Mac, tell me, what are your options? You can offer 20 million a year to Jacoby Brissett. You can give him a 2-year deal, 40 million for Jacoby Brissett, okay, for 2 years. But to save 40 million, there's a drop between Kirk Cousins and the Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is very capable of being successful. He's a decent quarterback, but he's not the type of quarterback you want as a franchise quarterback. Maybe he could do what Geno Smith did, have that type of success, maybe. But Kirk Cousins, you know what you're getting. You know he's going to be good for you.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know. I think there are a lot of quality backups out there right now, more than ever before. Maybe I talked to a few of them.
Backups, Matt. Right, we're not talking starters. Backups.
Listen. I just think Kirk Cousins, if he plays at night, if he's in a big game, for some reason he folds up, and I don't know why. I don't know what it is. He's like an anti-vampire. He's the opposite of a vampire.
Kirk Cousins strikes me as the type of player who's there to pick up his paycheck. He wants to win, but if he doesn't win, fine. He gets his paycheck. I mean,
I don't think he's like that, Jack. No, Jack. No, I have met Kirk Cousins, so I think he's a player that needs to go. He's trying to go to the Super Bowl. That's what I think.
Okay, I'm saying how he strikes me. I don't know him. You know him, okay. You feel he has this tremendous burning desire to win. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just think if he can be healthy and stay healthy, I think he will put them where they need to be because they've been so close. They've been so close.
And not that close. I mean, they got to the playoffs and then they lost to the Giants, the Vikings. And on fourth down,
they was in the top of their conference before he got hurt. Though they was they first and second.
He is a good quarterback, Kirk Cousins, and when his career's over, he is going to be given consideration for the Hall of Fame, even though it's very unlikely he'll ever go to a Super Bowl. But I'm going to tell you this:
who's going to consider him for the Hall of Fame?
No. He'll be given. I wouldn't vote for him. He'll be on the ballot. He will be on the ballot, I believe.
Hey, look
but
at
if you compare him to other quarterbacks who didn't lead their team to the Hall of Fame, I wouldn't put him quite on the level of a Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers was a heck of a quarterback. He could be a franchise quarterback for any team. If you got a young Phillip Rivers, I would draft him even number 1 if he was available. But
if I'm not mistaken, Kirk Cousins in the last 3 or 4 years have had 25 or more touchdowns in those seasons, and that is hard to do. Him and Justin Herbert have been at the top for his touchdowns.
You did mention the great receivers he has playing for him too, so that kind of helped him a little bit. Let's talk a little about another quarterback from the past that was MVP. Cam Newton says Brock Purdy is the 10th best player on the 49ers. I don't know. I don't know if he took a piece of paper and he wrote down names and he crossed them out to get to number 10 or not. I'm not sure how he put that together. But listen, everybody knows that's played football, that knows football, knows a quarterback is the most dependent on his teammates. the line's got to block, the whole 9 yards. The running back's got to run, the receivers got to catch for them to be successful. That's every great quarterback knows that, has had that when they played football for any team. To say he's the 10th best, I don't know. I mean, is he the 10th best, Byron, on the 49ers?
I think he's better than the 10th best because of what he did in this last game. He was able to get up and run the ball, and when he needs to run, he don't make mistakes. He don't try to force the ball in there, and he gives his receivers opportunity to make plays. And that's what you want in a quarterback. And he's very dependable. So he's been one of the most consistent quarterbacks, in my opinion, in the games in the last 2 years. He's been one of the most consistent quarterbacks from top to bottom.
Good morning, my den, my ruse. The Kirk Cousin curse. I never heard of this one. Any team in the Super Bowl that has lost to Kirk Cousin in the regular season has gone on to lose the Super Bowl. Real or not real? It's a new game show we're going to be playing here. Real or not real? Is that true? I don't know. I haven't been studying Kirk Cousins that much. So anyway, Jack, I mean, let me get your opinion here. Everybody on the 49ers absolutely loves Brock Purdy, from Kittle to their big tackle to the defense. Clark loves him. I mean, listen, the kid leads by example. He don't come out there shouting and stuff. He does get fired up once in a while. But listen, I mean, Purdy works in that system.
Maybe football should start doing what boxing does with their pound-for-pound ratings, because everyone knows heavyweights would beat guys who are smaller than them in all the other divisions. So you're not going to compare Floyd Mayweather, for example, to Vladimir Klitschko and think Floyd Mayweather ever could have beaten him had they fought. But Mayweather would be rated ahead of him, maybe pound for pound, what they do in their own division. Let's look at the 49er offense and compare Brock Purdy to a few other players within their positions. Who is better within their positions? I could ask you guys, Christian McCaffrey or Brock Purdy?
Christian
McCaffrey. Deebo Samuel or Brock Purdy? You give Deebo Samuel an edge.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
Trent Williams, the offensive lineman of Brock Purdy, you give Williams an edge. George Kittle, who's proven, or Brock Purdy, you give Kittle an edge. That makes Purdy the 5th best play on offense if you want to look at it from that way. But how do you compare? It's like comparing a pitcher to an outfielder.
I agree.
You can't compare, Bob Gibson to Willie Mays. I mean, I'm getting to the old timers now. You just can't, different positions. It's so, come on.
I agree. That's like,
but you can compare how consistency is, his quarterback rating, the things that he, interceptions and things like that, how many touchdowns he's thrown. I mean, you compare those things, and and basically you compare him as his quarterback rating and his consistency. I mean, this is the first time you see him run the ball the way he ran. He had to run in that instance, and that's what changed the momentum of the game.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you guys this. If Brock Purdy, hypothetically, the 49ers win the game, he's Super Bowl MVP, you could then make the argument that Brock Purdy is the 2nd best quarterback in the NFL. He's not going to pass Mahomes no matter what. Mahomes, let's say, plays a bad game. He's ahead of Brock Purdy no matter what. You'd have to have your head examined if you had a choice between Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes next season going forward to be a quarterback, and you didn't take Mahomes. But if Brock Purdy plays a great game, you could argue he's the 2nd best quarterback in the NFL if he's Super Bowl MVP. He's been outstanding. He's led come from behind drives, which have been legendary against the Packers, against the Lions in the playoffs. He's carried the team.
Let's get to some Giants news, because we're going over with this Purdy talk here, which is Purdy.
You spend all this time on Kirk Cousins, Mac. What are you complaining about?
Yes, I
did. Get him, Jack.
So let's talk a little Giants news. The Giants, the year they beat the undefeated New England Patriots, they're rated the 2nd worst team in Super Bowl history, according
2007.
According to a report I read. And they're saying that because they were outscored during the regular season. And then he says, well, they did have the third hardest schedule in the NFL at that time. Then they say that, they did beat the Falcons. They played a great game against the 49ers. And then, of course, the upset of the Patriots. So to me, it's kind of talking out both sides of your mouth, right? They're the worst, but yet they won the Super Bowl. They were outscored, but yet they had the toughest schedule that year, the third toughest, as a matter of point. So, I mean, the article really ended up making no sense to me, except it was a headline grabber, right? I think the number one worst ranked team that year was of all time was the 1970 Colts, they said. So, I mean, however you want to say it, the Giants beat the Patriots, and that's all I care about when it comes to the end, anyway. So,
who cares, Mac? Who cares what the record is? Tampa Bay was 9-8 this year. They won a playoff game. If they continued and they won the Super Bowl, who cares if they were 9-8?
Not to cut you off, but what I love about that Super Bowl, I went out there. It was in Phoenix. What I love about that Super Bowl, everybody had the New England Patriots shirts on. They just knew they were going to beat the Giants. But what I love, the Giants showed up and played an awesome game. And that's what.
Which Super Bowl was it? The first or the second against the Patriots?
I think they played the Patriots both times.
Yeah.
What Byron said about the shirts out there.
No, I'm saying that everybody, all the fans, everybody that was walking around just knew that the Patriots were going to win the Super Bowl. I mean,
so you picked the Patriots. In other words, you knew they were going to win your thing.
I had my Giants shirt on. I'm not like you.
You were just saying you were hanging out with the Patriots fans.
You done hit your Jets shirt. I'm not like that. I got my Giants stuff.
Yeah, but
look, I got my Giants stuff right here, Jack. This is me. I'm a Giant. I'm not I'm a fan, Jack.
The Jets scored the biggest upset in Super Bowl history.
When?
I don't know.
They have that.
When?
They beat the Colts.
How long ago?
Super Bowl 3.
I don't know. I don't know if you consider Giants beating the Patriots undefeated team more, or the Colts and the Jets is pretty close.
Colts only lost one game that year going into the Super Bowl. Yeah. So it's virtually the same as the Patriots being unbeaten. And the one game they lost, they avenged it in the playoffs against the Vikings.
Well, that's close. That's close. Yeah. So anyway,
have better players than the Patriots.
The Giants. What are they going to do with Saquon Barkley? Byron, are they going to finally sign him to a contract?
I hope they sign him. I hope they can keep him intact, and just let's move on and let's put some other pieces in place. Get a good wide receiver, and let's go. Let's go play some G-man football.
Yes, let me tell you. Let me praise Thibodeau. He said he spoke up. I praise him. He said the Giants should have dealt with Saquon Barkley's contract before Daniel Jones. As he said, he's happy Jones got his money. No knock on Jones at all, but they should have taken care of Saquon. So Thibodeau was showing a little leadership there, having the back of the lead of the team, Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley just hired a new agency, guys, to represent him. And this is what I don't understand. Maybe you guys could tell me this. Saquon Barkley is more or less setting a deadline. He's not saying, if you're going to franchise me, don't wait. Just get it over with. Do it so I know what the heck's going on. Either let me be a free agent, let me leave, or sign me. But if you're going to franchise me, just do it. What is Saquon Barkley's options? If they franchise him and they refuse to trade him, he can't go anywhere.
Right, exactly.
But will the Giants push it and make him hold out? Because he's got such a great image, Saquon Barkley, and I think Giant ownership is about had it. They're not going to let him hold out and let this get ugly. I really think ownership has finally let Joe Shine, the Giant GM, know you got to get this resolved.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the earlier the better, and they hopefully they start working on it as soon as possible, because this offseason, that should be their number one priority for sure.
I agree. And and to end it here, listen, as we said before, Saquon Barkley is not just a great running back. He's a weapon. He can throw, he can run, he can block, he can pass. He's the total package. If
He's
they
more than that.
franchise,
He's the face of the Giants. He
there you
does
go.
community
I agree.
stuff.
I
He's
agree.
the type of guy you want representing your organization as the face of your organization. He's clean cut, well spoken.
Yeah.
Good
And
image.
that's why the Giants will not let him go, whether they franchise him or sign him. So that's going to be a really interesting. One last thing with the Giants before you go, Byron. Schoen said he might take a quarterback or a running back, which surprised me, in the first round. I guess it has to do with Saquon possibly leaving, and we know the Giants do need a starting quarterback next year, whether it's whether he plays right away or he doesn't, how fast he learns, whatever the case may be. What are your thoughts on that? Did the Giants draft a quarterback?
I don't think they'll probably draft a quarterback because of where they sit for a sixth position, but I think they definitely need to get that wide receiver. That's in my opinion. I think they definitely got.
I knew you'd say wide receiver. How did I know that, Byron? I knew you'd say that. They got a great tight end in Penn State and a great offensive tackle in Oregon too, which they need. Definitely need an offensive tackle. So that might be where they go first. Who knows? Byron, thank you again for coming in. We love having you on every week. Good morning to Keith, TGI Sports Talk host, who now Byron doesn't want to stick around to talk with anymore. It used to be Robert.
Hey, Chief, how you doing?
Hello, Byron. I don't take any offense to it. It's fine.
I got to go. I got to hit out of here. All right, I'll see you guys.
Yeah. All right, take care. Keith, I don't know. I got rid of Keith. What happened? All right, there's Byron. I know. What the heck's going on? Again, good morning to Joel Hunt from MBR Radio Broadcasting. Glad to have you joining us this morning. Big fan of those guys. So, Keith, you come in just in time as we're going to talk a little bit about the Jets. Then, of course, we'll turn to college football and then to the Patriots and college basketball. I got all kinds of stuff ready for you this morning. Cool. So, the Jets, New York Jets, didn't wish head coach Salah a happy birthday. I don't know. That's a big news in Jets.
They didn't wish him a happy birthday.
They didn't, and that caused rumors and speculation, and everybody thought maybe he'd be fired, and all that came pouring out of that. What they said was that the social media people didn't want any backlash from wishing him happy birthday. All the negativity. So that's why they didn't do it right away.
Can I just say, I've been with the corporation I've been with for 25 years, and I've never been wished a happy birthday, and it hasn't bothered me once.
So anyway, I don't think Salah was upset about it either. Some news about Hackett, their offensive coordinator. He's unofficially demoted. Not officially, unofficially demoted. Whatever that means, it means that he's not going to be calling. He's not going to be calling the plays and all that good stuff. Someone else will be, but he's still there, and I think that has to do with Aaron Rodgers, if nothing else. Why he's not been let go.
Well, Aaron Rodgers is his boy. I don't get it. I don't understand the whole situation.
What I don't understand is this: we should go back to the old times in the NFL. Certain quarterbacks should be allowed to call their own plays. They'll be more effective than having a coordinator set it in. A Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, guys who've been around, who have the pedigree. You really want plays sent in for you? I mean, Johnny Unitas used to hate Don Shula's guts because when Don Shula took over as coach, he'd want to send in the plays. Unitas would disregard it a lot of the time. Because he was upset. Why are you sending in plays for me?
Jack, for the most part, all the quarterbacks call their own plays, whether it's an audible. They have like 3 plays to call. They make, because the defense is set up differently, they may call a different play. They pretty much do call their own plays. The 15 plays scripted, I think, is set in stone. And I would imagine the offensive coordinator and a quarterback all sit and talk about what the first 15 plays will be.
I think they can check off those first 15 too. I mean, you're not going to just run it if you're going to get, a 5-yard loss from it. So.
It's pretty loose over there. There's nothing you're held to, like maybe they were, maybe 10 years ago. That's not the way anymore. So, they are calling.
Well, the problem with Hackett, getting back to that, what Keith says about being Aaron Rodgers, boy. that's a strong relationship. But if Rogers isn't in for whatever reason, he gets hurt, the Jets don't want Hackett calling the plays. They don't want him as the offensive coordinator. He wouldn't even be on the staff if it wasn't for Rogers. Maybe as a quarterback coach, and even then that's highly debatable. So as long as Rogers is on the center, they're good with Hackett calling the plays because Rogers will audible him all the time. So that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay. All right. Sure. That sounds good. Keith, college football. One of your favorite colleges is losing their coach, and he's becoming a defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. Get your thoughts on that a little bit.
He was probably he was on a very hot seat at Boston College. Anyway, they haven't really performed to expectations the last 5-6 years, really. After having a pretty good run for maybe 20. I mean, they were never great, never top 5 team, but they were always competitive in the Big East, the old Big East, and moving to the ACC didn't help them any. But I'm not surprised at this move. I mean, you see a lot of guys who are on the cusp in college move to the pros for coordinator, even a position coach job. But I'm not surprised here. It'll be interesting to see how they fill this position this late in the college season. I mean, there's a lot of guys on the pro level going the other way. Position coaches that are in line, they're being talked about for the BC job. It's just a tough job today because recruiting is getting harder and harder at schools like BC, Syracuse, schools that have had traditionally pretty good football programs. Yeah. It's just getting harder and harder for them to keep up with the haves, so. Yeah.
You have Iowa's hiring Tim Lester to provide a little more offensive punch to the Hawkeyes. Their defense was great last year. Their offense, not so much. He was with West Michigan. All their offensive categories went up while he was there. Yards per play, the whole 9 yards, scores, and all that stuff. So he's going over to Iowa. Does this help the Iowa offense and help the team become better?
You know what? Kirk Ferentz has been there for like 25 plus years. And the offense has been the same ever since he got there. I mean, his son, Brian, was the offensive coordinator for the last however many years. And he had a contract last year where he had averaged 25 points a game and win 7 games to keep his job. They averaged about 18 again. This team will be, as long as Kirk Ferentz is there, and he's a really good coach, but his philosophy is defense, special teams, and he's not going to emphasize it until you get really quality offensive players. It's not going to matter who's running that offense. They're probably going to win games 16-13, and that's how it's going to be. And Kirk Ferentz is another guy who he's on a retirement watch because he's up there in age. I think he's around 69 now. Yeah. He's the longest tenured coach in the country, if I'm not mistaken. And he's done a really good job at Iowa. It's just they can never get over the top because of that. The offense he likes to run. He doesn't want to make mistakes and let his defense, kind of win games.
Well, I mean, that's kind of old school there, but in today's college football is a lot about scoring, or at least a equal distribution of scoring and defense. So
very hard to win big with his philosophy today.
Yeah, I agree. A little college basketball. We don't ever talk about the girls' college basketball, but we got to talk about Caitlin Clark here. I mean, she's moved up to second in scoring of all time. There is a 3-point battle that her and Steph Curry will be shooting 3 points in a contest.
I didn't know about that.
It'll be interesting to see who wins that. That will be interesting because they both are competitive, and they both can shoot that long ball. That's for sure. So we'll see.
She's a great player, and she's also this past week or maybe the week before, she helped. She wasn't instigating it, but she was involved in a incident with rushing to court, and she got knocked down, and they thought hurt at the beginning. Yeah, and it's brought a new light on this. I mean, these kids got to stop rushing the court. Somebody's going to killed in one of these.
And they're right on the court in basketball. It's not like they got to run across the track and the sidelines. They're right there when they can come out.
Basketball, it can be very, very dangerous. There's been some scary incidents in the last few years too, and the NCAA keeps talking about doing something about it, but they don't. And thankfully, she wasn't hurt, but she was knocked right to the ground. You could get trampled in that type of situation. So, anyway, she's a great college basketball player and great for the women's game for sure. Great for the game in general.
I agree. Good morning, Rick. Glad to have you out there. And Rick also says got her autograph at Mohegan Sun. There you go. That's something right up by me, Rick. I didn't know you were up by me while you're in New York, but I'm Connecticut. But that's close.
He goes up to the autograph shows here quite often, I think, when they have.
All right.
Or he's playing crap. I don't know what he's doing.
Who knows? Let's talk a little bit about Indiana State basketball. I read probably one of the most interesting articles I've ever read on a coach, and we're talking about Josh Shirk. He was a 5'8" point guard, a backup 5'8" point guard, a tennis star. He's been through an unbelievable amount of different things he's been through in his life. He's got a gift of gab. And now he's head coach at Indiana State, if I'm not mistaken, Keith.
Yep, that's correct.
And he's taken his team to like 7 consecutive titles. He's been in the NCAA tournament, I don't know how many times, multiple times. And this guy really wasn't a basketball coach in the beginning. He was everything else but that. Interesting article. If you get a chance, read it, Keith.
I did read part. I read an article about him in the Athletic recently, and it was probably very similar.
Yes.
Tennis prodigy. Actually, was a high school dropout. And Indiana State, they've been to NITs. They've not been to a lot of NCAA tournaments since Larry Bird was there. Almost 50 years ago now, 40 plus. So he's got them. I think they're 18-3, undefeated in the Missouri Valley Conference, and doing very, very well. So it's nice to see a school like that pop. Those are the stories that I like in college basketball. There's always somebody like them. James Madison early in the year looked like they might go undefeated until they got to the tournament, and then they had some injuries and ran into problems. But I like to see those types of stories in college basketball, right?
It's fascinating. I know Jack's get a chance, read it, Jack. It's like he said, high school dropout, living on somebody's couch. It just came out of nowhere and became a head coach at a major university. Good morning, Jason. Glad you joined us this morning. So
inspiring stuff.
Yeah, very much so. We did have a coach that was fired. The Blue Demons head coach Tony Stubblefield, Keith, was fired. I guess he's not done too well the last couple of years, and he's off to a terrible start this year.
They've had a hard time at DePaul since Raymeyer was there. Raymeyer was an institution at DePaul and in Chicago basketball. When he retired, his son took over. Still had some success for a few years when they were an independent, and then that started to go down. They joined the Big East, and they just weren't able to keep up recruiting with the big boys. And it's been a tough job for anybody who's been in there basically since Joey Meyer left there 2 decades ago. He just passed away here a few weeks ago too, by the way, Joey Meyer. And it's a school with some decent basketball tradition. I believe George Mikan went to DePaul, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think George Mikan went there. And it's fallen on really hard times the last, really 2.5 decades, really. So it's a tough job, and whoever gets there, I wish him well.
You think of the legacy with Ray Meyer, the dad being an iconic DePaul coach, and then his son, taking over the program.
Yeah.
It was really kept in the family for a long time.
They did, and Joey Meyer had some pretty good success his first, handful of seasons, and then things started to kind of slide from there.
Yeah, sometimes families, there's a link, and if I'm getting off topic, bring me back on. There was a hiring the Rams, a new offensive coordinator, Don Shula's grandson, as new coordinator there with the Rams.
Did not know that.
Yes, and his grandson, Shula's grandson, I read something where he was interviewing for the Dolphins defensive coordinator job.
Well, it's David Shula's son, Don
Right.
Shula's son, David, who actually coached the Bengals, for a while too. Didn't quite have, the successes Dad had.
Well, Mike Shula also coached Alabama in the
did.
years between Bear Bryant and Nick Saban.
Mhm.
And Mike Shula was a pretty successful offensive coordinator. He was with the Carolina Panthers when they went to the Super Bowl with Cam Newton. He was with your Giants, Mac, too.
Yeah,
An
he was.
offensive coordinator for a while.
Yes, he
yeah.
was. Yes, he was.
Unfortunately, people remember for his pretty much failed tenure at Alabama, but he was a good football coach.
I wonder when the kids are around their dads and they're coaching and everything, and they're studying film with them. Are they, are they watching how they treat the players? I mean, are they all involved in what they're, because they got to bring them with them. I would imagine you got to bring your kids to work a lot, and they learn, the Belichick kids. I would imagine.
I was going to say, you saw it with Belichick. Those kids grew up probably with if they wanted to see their dad, they had to be watching film with him in his office, probably. Right?
Well, sometimes the dad could learn from his kids who are coaching, because I remember Don Shula used to say, my son David tells me I have to interact more with players, speak to them more, get to know them a little better. So sometimes it could go both ways.
Sure. So there you go. I guess in DePaul they ran out of grandsons and they ran out of nephews and stuff to pass it on to. So anyway, good luck to the Demons there. Let's talk a little bit about Patriots news. Keith, we can't let you go without talking about the Patriots. So Robert Kraft finally admits dumping Brady was a mistake. Who, of course, went out to Tampa Bay and won the Super Bowl. But from what I recall, Keith, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brady wanted to go. He wanted out of the Patriots at that time. They really didn't dump him. He left because the season before he was there, it looked like the Patriots are going nowhere.
Well, that's true, but Robert Kraft didn't stand in his way, didn't put up any fight because Belichick basically, and again, he takes blame, but he finds a way to point the finger at Belichick as well, because Belichick told him he couldn't play anymore. If you remember that season before he left, they kind of limped to the finish line, lost to Miami in the last game, lost the home field advantage, and then played very lackluster in a loss to the Titans in the first round. And Brady looked very pedestrian. And Belichick told him, probably for the 25th time, because he's been telling him this since 2016 and was wrong up until then. What was that, 2019, I guess, or 20?
Yes.
And he goes and wins a Super Bowl. In fact, there's a story that came out after they parted ways that, that was when things really went bad for the Krafts and Belichick. When Brady went and won a Super Bowl after Belichick told him he could not play anymore at a high level. And Kraft used some very choice words to say, this brilliant genius says he can't play, and he goes out and wins a blankety blank Super Bowl. So,
well, there's more. Analytics may have done Belichick in, because he did a study of quarterbacks, and when I got to the point that Brady would get to, they'd start fading. But Brady kept insisting he was different, and Brady wanted to leave because of the relationship. He wasn't given control, Brady, running the offense and personnel decisions, the way Aaron Rodgers is being given the respect of the Jet organization. Look at the guys they brought in. They involved Aaron Rodgers. The Patriots weren't involving Tom Brady in the process.
Well, they did to a certain extent, because they would talk to him about the things that they wanted to do. And they talked to him basically because they said, Tom, we need to restructure your contract so we can do this. Right. But he would sign off on doing that. So in a way that he was consulted.
They were getting the players he wanted, the way the Jets got an Alan Lazard.
Well, no.
A Randall Cobb for Aaron Rodgers. They weren't doing that.
And that really helped him out. That really helped him out.
But anyway, I'm pretty sure he was involved in
it with the Patriots.
And at Tampa Bay, he was consulted, and he did bring people into Tampa Bay.
And he brought people in, and look what happened there.
And going back to Kraft real quick, I mean, I think what he was really admitting to was if he really wanted Tommy to stay, I think he would have stayed. I think if he put his foot down and said, I want you to stay, I'll give you what you want. He chose Belichick the first time, because this wasn't the first time, remember?
Yes.
A few years before that, Belichick wanted to move on from Brady and move on to Garoppolo. And Kraft said no. And Belichick said, fine, I'll trade Garoppolo. So this is a
And he traded Garoppolo cheaply. He
Yeah.
should have been able to get a #1 draft choice for Garoppolo. He was a hot commodity, and he traded him for the 49ers for a #2 pick.
Yeah.
Speaking of Brady, he's going to be the new lead analyst for Fox coming up this year, 2024. What do you think? What kind of analyst do you think he'll be, Keith?
There's the old term milk toast comes to mind. I don't think Tom Brady is going to be, Troy Aikman, or maybe in a better version of Tony Romo, or even Greg Olson, who I like a lot at times. I just think he's going to be more Joe Montana than one of these guys. Joe Montana didn't work out, if you remember, because he wouldn't criticize players. He was very bland. I got a feeling Brady's going to be the same way. But again, I got to see him. I think it's a shame Greg Olson loses his job. He's done a pretty good job. And he's going to get
Mac loves Greg Olson talking about the nickel and dime packages.
I like it, but most novice, Keith, don't understand all that football jargon. They want to attract the novice. They don't want this guy telling them what to do in a double fly and a flood underneath. And there's
again.
I'm just saying, Keith, that's what listen, I love it. I love to hear that stuff. But most of the fans, it's over their head. And they have no idea.
They want to hear guys like Tony Romo go that
Tony Romo, I'm going to tell you something. Greg Olson might be a little more attuned to exactly what's going on in the game as opposed to Tony Romo. But it's about entertainment as well. When I'm watching the game, I'm more entertained by Tony Romo than I am by Greg Olson. Because I feel if I'm listening to Tony Romo, it's like I'm watching the game with him. And I'd enjoy it more than watching the game with Greg Olson, who's very good. Greg Olson is very good. I don't mean to diminish him, but it's about entertainment. Look, when Monday Night Football started, Gifford, Meredith, and Cosell didn't know much about football, but it was fun listening to the interactions. It was entertaining.
He didn't know at the end of it either, by the way.
and you know something, there have been a lot of star quarterbacks that have tried this. Johnny Unitas has tried this. You brought up Joe Montana. Fran Tarkenton has tried this. He was on Monday Night Football. And they do talk above the fans. And Tarkenton used to do it all the time. Coso said, I wish you should be on the sideline calling the plays. I mean, these guys know what they're talking about. And the average fan out there is saying, what the heck are you doing? We all can agree that Olsen and Romo talk way too much. I think we can all agree on that.
They all do, I think.
I'm not sure, Mac. I'm not sure. You want them to inform us what's going on because they know certain things that they get the information relayed to them that we don't know just watching, and we count on them to get that info to us. As far as Tom Brady goes, Keith, there's a big difference. You especially should know this. No one is more dedicated than Tom Brady. He's not going to allow himself to fail. He is working his rear end off to make this a success. He's leaving no stone unturned. You know his work habits. How do you even think he could fail at this? He's not going to fail at this. The only question is this, let me ask you, Keith. Will he criticize NFL players, or will he look to hold back a little bit?
Well, to me, if you don't criticize players, then you're not doing the job you're hired to do. So he will have failed. So that's kind of part of what I'm talking about. Montana.
You know what I wish? I wish Belichick was still coaching the Patriots and Tom Brady had one of his games.
That would have been interesting.
That would have been awesome. Talk about entertainment. That would have been great.
I hope he does. Listen, I hope he does well because announcers are hard to listen to in general, as you were alluding to before, right? Let's get back to, I know we're never going back there, but you watch games, and I'll watch games a lot from the 70s and on YouTube.
John Madden.
Ray Scott, Pat Summerall before him and Madden really got into it. They let the game breathe and they wouldn't just talk. They'd say, they were very short on words. And when I'm watching the game, I don't need a lot of analysis.
Exactly. In fact, you're aggravating me because I'm trying to watch the game and you're talking about the last play that happened already. And you showed 5 different replays of it. I saw it. It's done. Let's talk a little Knicks before you go, Keith. I know you got a show. Keith will be on Are You Serious right after us. Keith, Knicks win again. And they do it without Randall. And I don't know if Anobi played last night or not. I don't think he did.
I don't believe
and there was another. I think the other guy was hurt too. So the Knicks win again. They are only now a half a game behind Milwaukee, who lost to Portland. I think we're going to pass Milwaukee. I mean, this is getting good.
I think it's entirely possible that they will pass, and they overcome, by the way, a 15-point deficit in this game last night late. And again, Ichawa, I can't say this other guy's name. He still played well last night with 16 rebounds and 12 points last night. So he played very well. Hartenstein with another good game. He's been underrated in this whole thing. He's played much better than he played last year. He was a big reason why they didn't do better, I think, last year. And again, Brunson goes off for 40. So
3 points. Yeah.
But the story tonight, I don't know where you're going to get to this, Mac. The LA Lakers, they go into Boston. You were going to get to that.
Yes, that was next.
No LeBron, no Anthony Davis, and they beat the Celtics, and the Celtics are playing all their good guys.
Yes. Reeves had a great game.
Their third loss at home, I think, all year, right?
Yeah.
And the Celtics have their lineup in there, and they lose to the Laker backups basically.
Jason, yes. That's all I got to say to that question. Yes.
Conference final.
Yes.
Embiid with his knee issue, who knows come playoff time. I think the Knicks, I don't see them getting by the Celtics in best 4 out of 7.
They're going to the finals. They're going there.
Bucks,
Cleveland.
I would say for the Bucks, I wouldn't go against Giannis and Damian Lillard and Middleton.
I'd go against
them. I could see that going 7 games and the Knicks coming a little short.
I think the Knicks and Celtics, it would be exciting to see that throwback in the conference final. I think that'd be awesome.
Yes, and the only team I'll tell you I'm worried about is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are playing their butts off right now. I mean,
they're playing good, but the Knicks handled them pretty good last season.
They did last season.
The Miami Heat, don't count them out completely. They somehow get there at the end.
They might get rid of their star there. They're talking about it. They're talking about
Butler. Wow,
if they unload their stars at the trade deadline, then they'll be done.
They would get a major haul for Jimmy Butler from some team that feels he put them over the top to win the title.
I agree. There's rumors about the 76ers and the Knicks involved in a possible trade.
Sixers are the one team that might break the bank because he's very close with Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler.
What do they have to do? Just win a championship. And they're in the discussion. They're in the discussion. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to say they're going.
They need to play the same kind of defense and the same kind of offense. Don't fall into that one-on-one trap. They fell into that trap last year when Randall got hurt and was banged up. They fall into this one-on-one trap in the playoffs.
Right.
And we don't need 5 Carmelo Anthonys out there.
No. Well, I mean, listen. Brunson can take when he has to take over. Other than
let's give Tom Thibodeau credit.
Yeah, you got it. You have to. And they're not done yet. They still got to make a trade here real quick. As we said, that the Lakers beat the Celtics. Cleveland beat Memphis. Good team too. And the Eastern Division, Boston's in first, Milwaukee in second. The Knicks, half a game behind Milwaukee, and that's all I care about. And
only
in the West,
behind the Celtics too.
Yes, and then I don't know if they catch them. We'll see. Minnesota 34-14, Oklahoma City 33-15. The Clippers in third, Denver's in fourth, and the Kings are in fifth. Don't forget about the Kings.
I will say this: the seeding's important. It's very important for the Knicks not to fall into the 4th seed, because that means come playoff time, there could be a matchup with the Celtics before getting to the conference finals. If they're 3rd seed, they'd have to beat the 2nd seed they avoid the Celtics till the conference finals, and then anything could happen. Of
I
course.
agree.
Let me get Keith out of here. There's 1 minute before it's got to set up. Keith, thanks for sticking with us. Check him up at Are You Serious? Thanks a lot, Keith.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. See you Sunday.
Take care.
You
Keith.
too. We'll see you Sunday, Keith. There you go, folks. Keith Engle, TGI Sports, coming up next with Are You Serious? Thank you for all the comments, loves, likes, and hopefully you share the show too when you get a chance after we're done here. Jack, good job. Everybody out there, great job. And everybody enjoy your Friday night. Don't get